Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to answer one of the most popular questions we get from non-farmers. How big is an acre? And not only that, how quickly can a farmer now farm an entire acre?
Well, it's certainly different with mechanized agriculture versus walking out there and hand seeding each individual plant. But when we look at an acre, what that represents is 43,560 square feet. So you may look at your yard and say, well, I've got a 100-foot by 100-foot lot. Well, 100 by 100, that's 10,000 square feet. That's about a quarter of an acre. So an acre is a pretty good sized unit, and that's what in the United States is used as a unit of measure for farmers when they look at field to field. Oh, this is 40 acres, 60 acres, 80 acres, and many of the seed purchases that farmers make are by the acre, or crop protection purchases they make are also by the acre.
So to put this in pretty simple terms that most people can understand, the size of an acre is about the size of a football field without the end zones, and maybe just a little bit smaller. So roughly it's 145 feet wide instead of 160 that a football field is. So if you're 300 feet long and 145 feet wide, that's about roughly what an acre is. So yeah, if you're looking at football this fall and you say, okay, there's a football field, that's roughly what an acre is.
All right, so when you think about that, for farmers, they're trying to farm their acres and get jobs done. So when it comes to planting, farmers want to get it done as quickly as they can because they're trying to plant on the optimal date. When the soil is warm enough, the weather is warm, and we get far enough along in the calendar, they aren't concerned about a frost, or they're concerned about the harvest and how many days does that crop need to get done so I can harvest it by a certain date. So for farmers, they want to get stuff done fast. So how fast can a farmer farm an acre?
Okay, so to run this math, it's really pretty simple. You've got your 43,560 square feet, and let's say we're doing some application that is 40 feet wide. Okay, so 40 into 43,560, roughly you're talking 1,000. So we've got to cover 1,000 feet. Okay, well the thing is, a mile is 5,000 feet, so that's 1/5 of a mile. Well, if you figure that a farmer can go 5 miles per hour, you can cover a lot of acres in an hour. So 5 times 5 roughly, you could cover 25 acres in an hour without all that much problem. And it just depends on the operation you're doing. So quite commonly in the fall, when we think about harvest on our own farm, by the time you figure the end rows and a little bit of messing around, unloading, all this kind of stuff, we figure we're going to do with one combine 10 or 15 acres an hour, and planting we're going to do 20 acres, 25 acres an hour, something like that. The big thing is we're not just planting, we're not just harvesting. There's a lot of time turning around, unloading, filling, all those types of things. So that kind of slows the process down. But there are a lot of things on the farm, spraying, fertilizing. We could do 100 acres an hour without all that much difficulty if we were really rolling.
So when you travel around the world, we talk about acres here on United States farms, but in other areas of the world, they talk about hectares. And what a hectare is roughly 2.5 acres. So it's a bigger unit of measure than what we're using here in the United States. And maybe that's just the changing times a little bit too, Brian. I realize it's the metric system versus the old system that we use. But when you think about it, for farmers, yeah, they can get an acre done so fast. Maybe we should be going by hectares and go by bigger units.
Well, yeah, I just look at, okay, 100 years ago, how much could a farmer really farm? Not much. I mean, that's why a lot of people are only doing maybe 100 acres, 200 acres, and it was a pretty good sized farm. And you had to put in a lot of hours to get that done. Well, anymore, a farmer can handle a couple thousand acres almost by himself. It's just there's a lot of grain to haul away and things like that. But in terms of the planting, the tillage, the spraying, all those kind of things, pretty easy to cover a lot of acres in a short amount of time. And the good thing, here's the best news about this all. When a farmer can do more things in a day, then that allows him to pick his days. In other words, he doesn't have to go out there spraying in bad conditions. He doesn't have to do excess tillage in some cases, or tilling at the wrong time, when it's super windy, or when he's got real muddy conditions, so he damages the land. He can do the right thing for the land, and that's the great thing about all this nice equipment that we've got anymore that allows us to cover all the acres in a short time.
Well, and certainly for farmers, they want to get fields with more acres It's a lot easier to farm big chunks of ground than it is to
turning
farm
around.
1 acre at a time and then have to drive 2 miles over and then farm another acre and so forth. So there are a lot of things that go into this, but for farmers, when you talk to them about anything they're doing with their land, almost always the farmer will say, well, I'm dealing with 1 acre at a time.
And one of the most important things to scout on that acre is our weed of the week. This could be one of the toughest weeds in soybeans, believe it or not. We'll tell you how to control it on your farm coming up later in the show.